The warrior of light stood at the shroud's edge, a savior's fate. Sealed by the knot, the burned knot, a shield shadow, first's last breath, but a clock. Each tick echoed Venat's warning, a savior's fate, but a clock. Warrior, what bearer did Venat walks a sea blade's edge? A future where light bends the soul, not the shadow. The warrior walks a blade's edge. Warrior, what bearer did Venat walks a sea blade's edge? Before the primal stirs, not in rage, but in remembrance. The blessing ticks, a borrowed age. The first's gambit, bind a primal's end to a mortal's breath. Fandeniel's return is no accident. Venat stirs, the final days are not an end but a relay. The cycle possessed does not break. The warrior's light dims with every shadowed hour. When the seal cracks, will Eorzea face a savior or a Leviathan reborn? The Ascians rejoining crumbles on this fulcrum. Hydaelyn's hymn falters. Zodiark's wrath waits. The warrior walks the edge between dawn and oblivion. One heartbeat, one borrowed time. The first's last act whispers, the blessing is not a shield, it is the hourglass. And the sand falls fast. The warrior of light stepped into Eorzea's fractured dawn, their blades still smoking from the first's final gambit. Shadows clung to their armor, not as stains, but as seal-seach, a second stolen from the hourglass. 5 years after the calamity's ash settled, the Scions of the seventh dawn gathered in Gridania's scarred heart, unaware their champion bled time itself. The blessing of light, radiant and cruel, pulsed in their veins like a second heartbeat. It shielded, yes, but at what cost? The first had rewritten Hydaelyn's song, threading the warrior's soul with primal code. Every victory against umbral hordes, every clash with Garlean iron, fed the core buried in their chest. The Scions spoke of hope, the warrior felt the gears turn, a flicker of Venat's sorrow in every strike, a whisper of Zodiark's rage in every wound. The blessing's glow dimmed by dawn, its light a borrowed flame. How long before the primal key awakens, before the warrior's blade points not at darkness but at the dawn? The hourglass nears its brink, and the first's gamble demands its due. The line echoes through every trial, the blessing of light resists tempering, a truth etched in victory, yet its shadow goes unspoken. What if the blessing is not a shield but a seal? A clockwork shackle counting down to the warrior's primal reckoning. Hydaelyn's ether, dense and unyielding, was never meant to empower, it was crafted to contain. Each triumph over primals masks the deeper war, the slow unraveling of a force borrowed from the first's dying breath. The seventh umbral calamity did not test the warrior's strength, it tested the blessing's endurance. Every clash, every surge of light but a gambit. The first's final act was not a gift, but a gambit, a temporary dam against a tide the warrior cannot fully hold. To survive the calamity was to accept the bargain. Your power is alone, your light a lit fuse. The MSQs hint at this decay. The blessing's resistance to tempering is a lie of omission. It resists not to protect, but to delay. Hydaelyn's ether is a counterweight, not a weapon. Its presence ensures the warrior's primal core remains dormant until the first's influence fades, until the hourglass empties. The first knew what no scholar dared say. The warrior's fate is written in the same stars as the primal. A paradox of salvation, the very light that one wars becomes the cage that must break. What happens when the blessing's flame dims? When the seal cracks and the warrior's own primal hunger rises, the first's gamble was never about victory. It was about time. A delay, not a cure, and time, as all things, runs out. The warrior walks a blade's edge. Behind, the shadows of primal past. Ahead, the echo of a question no relic can answer. When the light fails, will the warrior wield the dawn or become the storm? The warrior of light carries 14 lifetimes, not as wisdom, as weight. Each memory a shard, each sundering a scar woven into their flesh by the first's final breath. This is no blessing. It is a vault, and vaults rust. Venat refused to burn, refused to become the match that lit the cosmos. His defiance birthed Hydaelyn, his absence birthed Aether's fracture. The first in dying did not create a savior, he created a fuse. The Endwalker's MSQ whispers truth, memory is a blade. The warrior's mind is a battlefield where ancient wars replay, relentless, unending. A war that will not end when the clock strikes midnight. It is the clock. Each recollection a gear grinding toward the hour of collapse. Awe then not for the light, for the shadow it hides. The first sacrifice was not to grant power, to delay the inevitable, to buy time between the primal's slumber and the warrior's awakening. 14 seats of Histoire 14 cracks in the dam. What is a primal but potential made flesh? The warrior's curse is the same force that shattered Amarat, the same fire that roared in Ultima. The blessing is not a shield. It is a cocoon, and cocoons do not protect forever. Venat's choice forged a god, the first's choice forged a countdown. The light bends, the light breaks, and when the last memory fractures, the warrior will not rise as a hero. They will rise as the storm the first could not outrun. The first's final act was no benediction. It was a shackle forged in the same fire that birthed the primals. The blessing of light thighs radiant, blinding excess that carves its way into the warrior's bone sees not salvation. It is a clockwork wound, a fractured hymn to time borrowed from the void between awakenings. You see, the first did not grant power, they stole a reprieve, a pause in the inevitable. And every pulse of that borrowed light burns hotter, brighter, until the warrior's own shadow begins to weep. Venat's defiance at his refusal to become a god shows here. He chose mortality over ascension. The first chose delay over defeat. Both were wrong. The blessing is a ledger of debts. Each battle, each surge of light adds another line. The warrior's body, once a vessel of balance, now thrums with a dissonance only the primals could. Their skin glows like a dying star's surface. Their breath fogs with heat. The Shadowbringers see it first, the way their radiance warps the air, how it repels even the darkness that birthed their enemies. A sin-eater's hunger is not metaphor. It is a hunger for the weight of wrongs, for the poison of the world's grief. And the warrior, bound by this cursed blessing, will devour until there is nothing left but ash and silence. But light untempered is a fire without air. The first knew this. Which is why they left a paradox behind. To survive, the warrior must embrace the very thing they fight. Darkness is not their enemy. It is their anchor, a bomb to smother the blessing's fever. Yet every shadow clung to is a thread cut from their soul, every act of balance a step closer to the precipice. The primal's awakening is not a choice, it is an arithmetic. The warrior's light, too bright, too vast, will collapse under its own weight, and when it does, it will not become starlight. It will become hunger. The first's gamble was never about victory, it was about a delay long enough for Summon Anyanito write a new ending, but time is a fickle scribe. And the warrior's story, like all primal things, is written in sand. The warrior of light walks free after the seventh umbral calamity. The shroud retreats, the weavers whisper of a reprieve. But the sky still fractures, the umbral tide still rises. The blessing did not end, the cyclate folded it inward, a heartbeat paused but not stopped. The sensitives feel it, a rot beneath the reprieve. The warrior's wounds heal, yet their eyes dim. Each victory leaves ash on their breath. The light they carry dims not from battle, but from time's slow erosion. The first's gambit was never to save the world, it was to buy it breath. To delay the reckoning by rewriting the warrior's fate as both savior and sacrifice. A clockwork primal, ticking toward its own unraveling. Is the blessing a mercy or a deception? The sensitives see the pattern now. The warrior's survival is not hope, it is a wound dressed in starlight. The shroud will return, the weavers will stir. And when the blessing's hourglass empties, the warrior will not fall, they will become what they hunted. The cycle is not a loop. It is a spiral in the first's final act, a match struck in the dark, a delay, not a victory. The blessing of light is a shackle, not a shield, a measured decay. The first's final gambit, to bind the warrior's will, to stall the tide. Each dawn of borrowed time etches the countdown. Venat's fate repeats, the cycle spirals. Fandeniel's return will crack the seal. Venat stirs, Hydaelyn's age fractures. The warrior's primal shell cannot hold. What is a blessing that ends in ash, a lie of light? The first did not break the chain, they rewrote it. The warrior walks the same path, a savior bound to become the storm. The blessing is the pause between heartbeats, a delay. Not a cure, the final days are not an end, they are a relay. The first's match burns low, Fandeniel's shadow lengthens. When the hourglass empties, the warrior will awaken not as hero, but harbinger. The primal's roar returns, the world's ledger closes. No salvation in borrowed, only time, only the spiral. The first's gamble was never to win. Only to postpone the moment the light becomes the flame that consumes it. The warrior's curse is the cycle's final act. And every act must end. The blessing's glow masks a furnace. Each victory etched in light carves a countdown. The first did not grant immortality, it scripted a rebirth, a vessel for the age's final primal. The seventh umbral was no accident. The dragon song wore no coincidence. The Ascians rejoining sought Zodiark's return, yet the warrior's curse accelerates their work. A body forged to house what Venat could not contain. Fandeniel's final days were not a threat, they were a mirror. The warrior's twilight fuels the age's end, a bridge between Hydaelyn's death and Zodiark's rebirth. Every strike against the Ascians delays the hour their blade will shatter, not as weapon, but as door. What if the Endwalker's dawn is no triumph? What if light and shadow fold into one, as the warrior dissolves into the primal tide? The blessing's expiration is the first's last whisper, a gambit to outrun oblivion by becoming its architect. The age turns, the flame climbs. And the light, once weapon, becomes the wound that splits the sky. The blessing's expiration isn't fatates a riddle. The first's last gamble. Could love, the technology older than time, unravel the countdown? If devotion is the missing variable, what equations might we rewrite? The Scions ledger is yours to ink. Dissect this. Argue it. The comments hold the next clue, or the next catastrophe. The first's light burned not as salvation, but a brand-searing, insistent, a clockwork fever. You felt it, hands trembling, vision bleeds gold, a voice, was it darkness? No balance whispering, asterisk this is the price. Asterisk the blessing's pulse is the primal's heartbeat, ticking toward a fusion. What is dynamis if